Hello guys, did you see the video I sent you last night?
Yes.
So for today we will discuss about. So if you guys have any question, just ask me.
Yeah.
So I will introduce myself first. My name is Noraini Jasli. My student ID is 2023291224.
My name is Nurain Ardina binti Ardi and my student ID is 2023626598.
And my name is Muhammad Abadinas. My student ID 2023626306. So I have a question. The first one is, how does the interaction in the video illustrate the principle that power is superior position that exercise the privilege associated with their power, such as the final word or communication license?
Naza, thank you for the question. For what I understand, the video will show that the power between the boss and the intern is not equal. The boss is in the superior position, so the boss naturally has more control over what happens when it's come to overtime and work expectation. During the conversation, the boss speak in a way that show power, like deciding what should be done and expecting the intern to follow. Even when the intern try to expand feeling pride or pressure, the boss does not really treat it as something that can change the decision. That's what I understand. What about you?
Okay, so I agree with your statement, but in my opinion, for the question, the interaction in the video illustrates the flow of communication. The superior initiates the conversation, sets the topic, and ends the discussion. Next is the final word. The final decision is made by the authority figure without real negotiation. And last is communication license. The superior is free to interrupt, raise his voice, or criticize, while the subordinate must be careful, paid, and often ask permission to speak. So the privilege shows that power is not just status, but the ability to determine the reality of the conversation, who is heard and who is ignored. Okay, so we move to question 2. So the question is, why might the employee's reaction be classified as an interpersonal conflict resulting from infective leaderships or emotional stress rather than just a simple disagreement?
Well, that was a good question. And in my opinion, the reaction from the worker is a conflict because it involves a disagreement between the boss, who is the superior, and the worker who works under the boss. This shows that if a disagreement happens between the boss, who owns the company, and the worker who works under him, it might cause a big problem in the company, and it will also affect the whole company, and eventually it will lead to a big fight that will cause more problem to the entire company. Well, that was my opinion for the question.
I see. I agree with you, but I don't see the intern reaction as just a simple disagreement because it involves emotion and pressure that have likely been building up for a long time. So, this agreement is usually more calm and focused only on the issue. But in this case, the intern reaction feel like it comes from stress, tired, and feeling trapped. The intern is not only disagree about overtime, but reacting to the overall treatment and workload. So this way, I think it become a interpersonal conflict. The conflict is not just about the overtime scheduling, but also about how the boss handle the intern feeling, and the boss response also matter a lot. Instead of trying to calm the situation or understand what the intern is feeling. That's all for me. So now we move to question 3. So the question is, what basic interpersonal conflict issues such as excessive demand or lack of equality are present in the scenario, and how does interdependency of the individual increase the impact of the conflict?
Okay, thank you for the question, Ain. I will answer the question. So, the specific interpersonal conflict issue is some of the obvious issues of interpersonal conflict are excessive demands. It means the authority imposes disproportionate expectation without considering the capabilities or situation of the other party. The next is lack of equity. The contribution, views, or needs of subordinates are not given equal value. And the last is lack of emotional recognition. The subordinates' frustration or stress are taken for granted. Independence. Example is the need for work, grades, approval, or cooperation. That's all.
Well, that was a very great answer. I agree with you, and I would like to add my own opinion. Well, for me, from the aspect of interdependency, because both sides depends on each other. The leader needs the work to be completed, and the employee needs the job. And when the fight happens between both of them, it will eventually affect both of them and also the overall worker in the company, and the result will eventually cause a bigger issue among the worker and also the higher up. That's my opinion. Now we move to the last question. Who holds the power according to the principle of less interest and when it might be true?
Thank you for the question. So I will answer first. So in my opinion, I think the boss holds the most power because the boss is the one with authority and is less dependent on the intern. The boss can easily replace the intern or shift tech to someone else, but the intern cannot easily replace the job opportunity. That's why the boss has more control in the leadership, and the intern has less freedom to disagree openly. But I also think that power can decrease if the boss continue trying to control the intern and is not working. For example, if the intern become too burning out, start making mistakes, lose motivate, or finally decide to quit, the boss control become weaker because the intern is no longer cooperate effective. Yes.
Okay, I agree with your answer, Ain. But for me, according to the principle of disinterest, the individual who is dependent is on the relationship or outcome of the interaction is most willing to let the relationship. By holds the boss power in scenario usually the superior. So, however, the power begins to diminish when they continue to try to control, but the other party begins to receive possibly silence, minimal complaints, and withdrawal. By control no longer produce complaints or cooperation, the subordinate gains alternative support from others, exit option, or new sources are power.
That was a very good answer from both of you. I do agree with your answers, and I would like to add my own opinion. Well, from me, the decreasing power, a superior power, can go down if they fail to control the worker. For example, if the worker feels suffocated because the boss talk too much and give them too much order, eventually the worker will feel like, oh, I need to resign. So, and ended up the worker will resign and the company will lose one of their best worker. And if the employee choose not to follow the order given by the boss, their contract can be terminated and they will eventually lose the job from the company. That was a very good answer, and well, from this very well discussion, I can conclude that the workplace conflict should be done properly to avoid bigger problem for both the worker and also the boss. I think that's all from us.